Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik wa sallim. Yesterday we spoke about setting sincere intentions. And today's discussion is about creating a practical schedule for the month of Ramadan. And before I jump into talking about our practical schedule, I want to highlight first the importance of having a schedule. Developing a schedule might be very easy for some people to do. The reason why we sometimes fail is because we don't understand the importance behind carrying out what we have planned for our day. So first thing I want to note for us is to understand the importance. Now, usually you see those YouTube videos or Facebook videos or Instagram videos of those highly motivational speakers. They're very rich. They have these cars in the background and other stuff, right? And they're talking about how they've made it and they're so successful. And it's because they have this specific schedule they're following, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and they're taking action. And it's super motivating. And it's like, oh, well, these people are so special. It's as if they found a new formula or something. And there are a few things we need to understand about these people. Many of these people who are successful, they start off with a sense of financial privilege. That's point number one. The second point is that they only allow us to understand the part of their schedule they only want us to see. So there are parts of their schedule or parts of their day or their week or their month that we don't understand. And it seems like what they're doing is ideal. It's perfect. But what I want to stress is the importance of the schedule itself, because even these people who are so focused on the dunya, they're so focused on attaining money, attaining millions or billions, whatever it may be. They emphasize the importance of a schedule. They mention that, look, if you don't follow this schedule, then you can't make the money you need to make in this life. That financial freedom is so important, and you gotta push, and you gotta work really hard to make it. And if you fall off your schedule, then you mess up. If you go to a student who's studying very rigorously, and I mentioned this example yesterday, who has this higher goal, whether they want to go for a PhD or they want to be a researcher, they want to become a physician or a surgeon or something that deals with a higher level of education. They want to become even an alim. Let's talk about Islamic sciences, for example. They want to become a mufti, a scholar. And you ask about them and how they're approaching their goal, they're going to say, I need to have a schedule, right? They have a very set schedule that they're following. And these are the students that you see who are at the top of their class. Right? And these are the students who go through with their classes and their assignments with much more ease than anybody else. And it's because they have a specific set schedule. We can understand, generally speaking, why a schedule is important, right? If you and I struggle to understand the importance behind it, then we really need to ask ourselves, why is that? Why do we find it so difficult to understand that having a set time for certain things is what's important for us? And when I say us, I don't mean us as people. I mean us as believers. See, now I'm going to talk about a few things. If you try to have a schedule like that student, but your purpose is not the same purpose as that student, you're going to fail. If you try to have a schedule like that millionaire, but your purpose is not the same as the purpose of the millionaire, you're going to fail. You have to have a specific purpose behind your schedule. A schedule without a purpose equals failure, simply put. So the question comes, what's the purpose? Well, there's two types of purpose that I want to talk about in today's lecture. The first being our overall lifelong purpose. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran that He did not create jinkind and mankind, so He did not create us and the jinns except to worship Him. إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. So that's our overall lifelong purpose. And we understand this from looking at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and how he carried out his life, and how he preached, and how he gave da'wah, how he invited people to Islam, right? The fact that he was praying and he was in a form of worship all throughout. Yesterday I talked about the state of fasting. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was in a state of worship all throughout, because everything he did, everything he was dealing with, every form of interaction he carried out in his day dealt with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala one way or another. So that's the lifelong purpose. But now we're going to break that lifelong purpose down to a specific Ramadan purpose. Why? Because that's the focus of this entire series, right? Holistic Ramadan. We need to find our purpose for Ramadan. See, people start off Ramadan very eagerly, and they have all these goals that they have in their mind, just like a New Year's resolution. And they have A, B, C, D, I want to hit this and I want to get this done. But if you don't understand the purpose behind why you're doing it, you won't, one, appreciate what you're doing, and two, you'll probably end up failing somewhere down the line, right? Because you don't find it important enough to come back to it and revisit it. So, what's the purpose of Ramadan? What's the purpose that we need to put into our schedules before we create a schedule for Ramadan? It's what, day 3 for us, right? Some of us maybe are trying to follow a schedule. Some of us have realized that we made a schedule that we can't follow yet. And some of us don't even have a schedule yet. Regardless, this applies to all of us, because if you have a schedule, you can refine it. If you don't have a schedule, you can create one. The first thing that we need to understand is the purpose of Ramadan itself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, the purpose of Ramadan is for us to attain taqwa. It's to attain taqwa. It's not so I feel the pain of those who are hungry. It's not so I feel and I can relate to those who don't have much, who don't have food in their life. Those are things in terms of sympathy and empathy we understand as a virtue that results from us fasting in Ramadan. These are good things to understand and have a grasp of. But it's not the purpose. The purpose is taqwa. Taqwa, we've heard this many times, taqwa is the God consciousness. But I think we use the word consciousness very slightly and lightly when we define it. God consciousness is not you've heard the example perhaps before that you're in a road with thorns all over, and you're trying to shield yourself against all these pricks and thorns in the road that you're on. And this road is known as the road of Islam itself. God consciousness is not just to think about God 5 times a day when you're praying. God consciousness is not when you deal with someone who's a Muslim. God consciousness is not when you just come to the masjid. God consciousness is not just here and there. God consciousness is all the time. It's 24/7, right? We're going back to the whole state situation, the state concept again. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that in the Quran, Ramadan is given to us, and the act of worship is mandated upon us so that you and I can gain taqwa, so that you and I can become more conscious of God. See, we are conscious to an extent. We're conscious to an extent. Were we not to be conscious, we would not be fasting, right? Were we not to be conscious, we would not testify in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We would not believe that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the last and final messenger of Allah. We're conscious to an extent. But Ramadan is here, and this fasting is prescribed upon us because our taqwa needs to be refined and it needs to improve. So there's consciousness that you're really aware. You know what? A good example of what our level of consciousness is right now is, when you're kind of dozing off in the middle of a lecture, maybe even this lecture, right? And you're like hearing stuff in the background, and you hear some noise, right? And you're like, okay, yeah, I hear the speakers talking about something, and you hear a word here, you hear a word there, like, okay, consciousness, that's what I heard. That's the level of consciousness we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala right now, probably. But Ramadan is coming to make us conscious in such a way that everything the speaker is saying, you're like, yeah, I'm catching on, I'm taking notes, I'm following exactly what he's saying, this exactly relates to me, or I'm making it somehow relate to me and my situations in life, and you're killing it, right? That's 2 levels of consciousness. So Ramadan is here to take us from that first level where we're just kind of like listening in, like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to pray. Oh yeah, something about Quran, it's the month of the Quran. Oh yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. No, it's to create a sense of consciousness where Quran becomes a part of our life, where it becomes a part of our lifestyle, where Salah becomes a part of our lifestyle. And I'm going to get into that when we talk about the schedule itself. But we can't go into the schedule if we don't understand the purpose, right? So this is the purpose of Ramadan. This is the purpose of fasting, so that we can improve our sense of consciousness and really, really appreciate and become humbled by this religion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored us with, right? So that's point number 1. Now that we understand the purpose, we have to identify the objectives. And, people have different schedules because people have different lifestyles, generally speaking. So there are people who are parents. There are people who are single parents. There are people who are staying at home the entire day. There are people who are working the entire day. People have different things they're carrying out throughout the day, right? There are people who are just students, right? There are people who are teachers. There are people who are professionals. There are people who are on the front lines right now, trying their best to save lives or provide food or some form of essential resource that's needed for the community. So different people have different schedules. Not everyone is under quarantine at the moment, right? And not everyone is safe at the moment, unfortunately. But this is the situation. This is the reality. But all of us need to have a schedule of some sort. Now, before I talk about our schedules and what it could become and the potential of, your schedule and my schedule. It's important to note an ayah from the Quran in Surah Al-Ahzab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرِ وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. That there is a beautiful, perfect, excellent example for all of you in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that if you want to find a role model of any sort, if you want to find someone to take from, subhanAllah, someone to just take from. So many people are like, I want to be inspired by someone. I go to this lecture so I can become inspired by a speaker. Or like, I'm going here, I listen to these TED Talk videos, and I listen to these, the Gary V, whatever his name is. I listen to all these lectures by people just to get me motivated because I want to take something from them. What did they do? What was their secret? Allah is saying, hey, you want the best tips? You want the best tricks of the trade, whatever it is? The best of example is in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For who? لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ, for those who hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His rewards, who hope in the last day, and those who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala often. So this is for a specific type of people. Hold on, this is for a specific type of people. It's not just for anybody. I told you at the beginning of the lecture that if you have the same objective, if you have the same schedule as a student who is pursuing to become a doctor, a physician, but you don't have the same purpose behind that schedule, you will fail. So this is for specific types of people. Allah clarifies those types of people. Allah clarifies it. Allah says, for those who have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last day, and who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala often. So this is the category you have to be in for this to fit in well with you, for you to actually take from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and learn from his examples, right? So, and we classify ourselves in this example, right? We classify ourselves in this category to understand that, hey, I want to be of those people. I want to be of those who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala often. I want to be of those. I do believe in the last day. I do believe in the last day. I do have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Regardless of my situation in life right now, I have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Regardless of the calamities I face, I have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That it will get better. If not in this life, then the next life. So if this is our classification, then our best of example to take from is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's in the Quran, right? So before I talk about our potential schedules, I want to quickly delve into what was the schedule of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he carried out his life, to understand how he maintained his schedule throughout the day. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I want to start with when he would wake up, right? He would wake up at dawn. He would wake up at dawn. Dawn is before Fajr comes in. See, he wakes up before that. Before the adhan of Fajr comes in, he's awake before that. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And then he prays his rak'at at home, right? He prays his sunnah rak'at at home. He's spending some time with his wife. And then the adhan is given. And then he goes to the masjid to lead in salah, for Fajr salah. But what happens? What happens between him waking up, praying at home, and then going to the masjid to pray? He wakes up, he opens his eyes, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his blessed eyes, and he makes dua. The dua for waking up. That's dua number one. And he gives shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's his first action item of the day. That's his first task of the day. That's his schedule. Our schedule is defined by an hourly basis. Like at 8 o'clock I'm doing this, at 9 o'clock I'm doing that. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when I wake up I'm doing this instantaneously. That's his schedule. That I just woke up, my eyes are open, I'm making dua. That's how he starts his day. Subhanallah. Then after salah, he's leading the salah. After his Fajr salah ends, he comes home to eat. And if there is no breakfast, then he's fasting. If there's no breakfast, he's fasting. Us, we're like, I can't pray Fajr until I have breakfast. The Prophet ﷺ, he prays Fajr, he comes back. If there's no breakfast, then he's fasting. Right? If there's no food at home, oh well. And he pushes through that, and he just pushes through. And then what happens? This is when he's focused on the community. The day starts, right? So for many of us, we might resonate because we have work in the morning, right? 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or 7 o'clock, depending on when you go to work. And you're dealing with the people. So right now he starts dealing with the people, right? After Fajr, he's with the people in the Masalla. He's talking to them. He's talking to the companions. But beyond that, he starts work. And his work is da'wah. Naturally speaking, he's going out, spreading the message of Islam and going to people, meeting with different people across the land, and even just taking care of the people in his own community. This is his job. This is his task that he took upon himself. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then, of course, before Dhuhr comes in, right, he takes a small nap. Right? This is a sunnah that he does. He takes a small nap. Then he prays Salat al-Dhuhr, right? He's with the people again, and he's still with the people. He's still with the people until Asr comes in. After Salatul Asr, now look at this. I didn't say until 5 o'clock. I said until Asr comes in. And we'll note this later, inshallah. After Asr, it's some downtime for him to spend with his family if needed, or some of the community members, the closer community members that he needs to reach out to. He's dealing with the people the entire time. This is all mu'amalat, like he's dealing with people, having transactions, doing all of those things. This is his basic, general schedule. Of course, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not do this every single day, because he had to adapt throughout his lifestyle. But generally speaking, this is where we learn the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in his schedule. So after Asr and a little bit downtime, then it's Maghrib, right? He's spending time with his family. After Salatul Isha, he goes to sleep. He doesn't wait too long. He goes to sleep. He doesn't deal with too many matters, because he's been dealing with the people all throughout the day. He's been engaging with his community all throughout the day. SubhanAllah, some of us feel like after work is done, I'm done dealing with people. We don't even want to deal with our own family members. We come home, we're like, I need some space. I don't want to deal with you right now. SubhanAllah, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not just deal with his family, he dealt with the entire community. And it was at large. And it wasn't just from 9 to 5. It was all throughout the day until Isha. And then after Salatul Isha, then the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he would go to sleep. And then he would sleep for a little bit. Then he'd wake up again. He'd sleep for a few hours. He'd wake up again. To what? To pray. And he would pray for the most of the night. And then he would go to sleep again. So he would sleep for like a third of the night. He'd pray for 2/3 of the night. SubhanAllah. Think about this. And this was his entire general schedule that he would follow. And why am I sharing this? I know that not everyone can follow it. I understand that. And I can't even follow it. Perhaps you cannot follow it. We have different lifestyles. I get that. But if you and I don't understand what perfection is, we'll never appreciate it, and we'll never aim for it. Just because you and I cannot follow this schedule today, it doesn't mean we can't do it in the future or in the near future, right? We should understand the standards of Islam. See, what's happening in our society today, and the reason why we have so many flawed schedules and objectives and goals in life by Muslims and believers, is because we don't understand the standards set by Islam. And when I say by Islam, I mean through the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He set the perfect of standards and the highest of standards. And what we do is, we look at the people around us. Don't look at me. Please don't look at me. Look at the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and look at his standard, right? We look at people around us, someone we see on TV or like this video or on our phone, on YouTube or whatever, and we're like, wow, this is really awesome. This is what I want to be. That's a low standard. That's a very low standard. No believer right now, no learned and knowledgeable believer will ever say that I'm the standard you should look up to. SubhanAllah. When we know the best of standards is in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, in the Quran, it's mentioned, right? So we need to understand what perfection really is. Because if we don't understand perfection, we're going to be always aiming for something less than that, and that's not okay. I'm not saying that it's not okay to be imperfect. We're all imperfect. But it's not okay not to aim for perfection. We have to aim for perfection. We must. So we have to understand this, and we understand this through the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So that I wanted to just lay that out for us to start off with, so we understand really what the standard really is, right? Now we have to talk about our different types of lifestyle. So we have people like parents, I mentioned students, professionals, frontline, people in the frontline, and people who are just organizers, social workers, people working in different fields in sciences. So how does it relate to your schedule? If you're one person and someone else is watching this, and 5 different people are watching this, how does it relate? Well, simple. It goes back to the mention I made about the Asr comment. I said that he did not work until 5 o'clock. He did not work until 4 o'clock. He did not work until 6 o'clock. He worked until Asr. Then after Asr, he had some downtime for his family and closer community members. Our schedules must have, regardless of what category you're in, regardless of if you're a student or a teacher or a professional or whatever, our schedules all must contain some mandatory aspects. Like, they cannot change. It cannot vary. It cannot be transient from one person to another. It has to be consistent all throughout for all believers. And those are the things I'm going to lay down for us at the beginning, so we understand how to really create our schedule that actually is practical for us to follow, right? And when I say practical, I don't mean practical like it's easy for you. No, that's an easy schedule to follow. A practical schedule is something that you can attain and you can follow through, and it might take some work from you, right? So the first thing most first and foremost thing for us to consider in developing our schedules is having salah blocked off all throughout the day. That you need to know exactly what time you're praying Salat al-Fajr. You need to know what time you're praying Salat al-Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. You have to. This cannot change. There is nobody in this world that can come in and say, well, but my situation is this, so I'm not really praying. No. Generally speaking, no. None of us can say that. So all of us on the general spectrum, we have to instill salah, we have to incorporate prayer all throughout our day. And it's not where you kind of incorporate it in a way where it's like, okay, Dhuhr is from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock, or Dhuhr is from 1 o'clock to Asr time. No. Dhuhr, you want to pray it as close as you can to the actual time that it comes in, right? You want to pray your prayers on time as much as you can. If there's something that blocks you from doing so, know what time you're going to pray salah. Right? What happens is sometimes we have intention to pray salah, then something comes up, and then we're like, oh, well, I'll pray it later, and then you never come back to it. And then here comes Asr. You're like, whoa, what happened? No. If you ever say, I'm going to pray a little bit later, when I say later, I still mean within time. I'm going to pray later. You have to know exactly when later is. So point one in creating a practical schedule, have your salah time blocked off. Now, this is on a daily basis. It's not on a, oh yeah, once a month kind of thing. No, it's every single day until we breathe our last breath. This is literally our situation as a believer. Once we have these 5 prayers locked down in its rightful times, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to pray it in its rightful times, then we have step 1 done. Step 2, you have to incorporate, this is a must, you have to incorporate stability in spirituality, these aspects, spirituality, emotional and mental health, and physical health. These things need to be maintained all throughout, right? How? The spiritual stability comes from salah. We already covered this. Alhamdulillah, that's done and taken care of, right? So if you have salah all throughout the day, you have some sort of spiritual stability. How you pray your salah changes how much stability you have. That's a different discussion. And we'll talk about that when we talk about salah itself. We have a lecture coming up in this series, inshallah. We're going to talk about salah. That's point 1. That's spiritual. In this month of Ramadan, you'll be fasting too. That's a second spiritual point, right? We'll come to the last one at the end, inshallah. But the emotional, mental, physical, how does that happen? You must make time to at least engage with your family somehow. We're under quarantine. You have to engage with your family at least for some portion of the day. Why? Because actually interacting with people face to face, especially if they're your parents, subhanAllah, you get rewarded for this. They'll be happy with you. You'll be happy with them. Your family relationships will strengthen. But beyond that, you'll have social interactions. And this will be good for your mental health, right? Hopefully they're good interactions, right? If you're arguing with your family the entire time, that's different. Right? You have to work away from arguments and have the family focused on a certain way where we're talking about something that's positive, right? So social interaction is very important. And the best social interaction is to interact with our family members, even if it's for 1 hour, right? This Ramadan, maybe not all of us have the best relationships with our family. I get that. Some people are struggling. Some people are not that close to their mothers, their fathers, their sisters, and their brothers. But try to make just 30 minutes to an hour specifically designated for family time. Right? That you say that I'm going to force myself, and sometimes we have to force ourselves to start off things, right? I'm going to force myself to spend some time with my family because I know the one benefit that I'll get out of this at least is that I'll have social interaction and it'll be good for my mental health, right? Because so long as the conversations are positive and they're encouraging and they're motivating, right? Especially in the month of Ramadan. If you feel like you can't have a conversation with your father or mother without getting into an argument, change the scope. Instead of having a conversation with them, have a sit down with the family and give a reminder. Give an Islamic reminder. You can give it, your dad can give it, your mom can give it, anyone in the family can give it, right? When that's happening, only one person is talking and there are no arguments, right? So it's still engaging, you're still appreciating some time. It's a good way to really break the ice with your family members to start things off, right? But that time needs to be maintained. And then you'll see slowly that reminder that you're giving to your family members is turning into a conversation, and it's a positive conversation. It's a beneficial conversation. And now you're having healthy conversations with your family members. So this is a must. This is not talking about, oh, but I'm a student and no. For everybody. Having specific time, at least for your family, for your emotional and mental health. And the last thing, this kind of goes into the physical and also emotional and mental health too. it's all encompassing. Rest. You must rest. You must get enough rest. You must sleep enough. If you and I don't sleep enough, we cannot function properly. Your entire schedule is futile if you don't have the energy to carry it out. Many of the times we don't follow things on our schedule because we're just too tired, right? We're too lazy. No, sometimes you're just too tired. You're just sleepy, or you just feel lethargic, right? You're probably eating too much or not eating enough. You have to sleep enough and you have to eat the right amount. I'm not saying eat enough, because people take that the wrong way. They'll eat a lot. No, eat the right amount. Eat the right amount, and you have to sleep enough to maintain your functionality as a person, for you to be focused on your objectives throughout the day. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he even slept, right? If the case was that I'm going to stay awake all night and just do ibadah, then the Prophet ﷺ would have done that. But he slept too, to show us the example, the best of examples, that we need this. You need this for your physical strength. Sleeping gives you physical strength. A lack of sleep makes you weak throughout the day, right? And eating the right amount of food also gives you strength. If you eat too much, you'll become lazy and lethargic, right? Don't do that. So incorporate the aspect of resting and eating into one category, the aspect of family interactions into one category, and the aspect of ibadah, like such as your salah, your Quran, your dhikr, your dua, and your siyam, your fasting. Right? And I said I was going to come back to this. The Quran needs to be something also in your schedule too, in the month of Ramadan. It should be in your schedule all throughout the year, but most especially in the month of Ramadan. So now we understand the musts, like the obligations, the mandatory things you need to have in your schedule. Now you can comment and say, okay, I'm a student. Okay, I'm a professional. Okay, I'm a doctor. I'm a physician. I'm a surgeon. I'm an engineer. I'm a lawyer. I'm whatever. Now you can say something. Until this point, you're not allowed to say anything really. I'm not allowed to say anything, because these are the things that are essential to us to actually thrive and move forward positively with strength and having the right objectives in mind, right? The sleep gives us strength, the salah gives us the right objective, and the family gives us the support we need. The family gives us the support we need to actually persevere, bi'idhnillah. So these are the points I wanted to make. Now that we have these things, now you can talk about optional things. And this is the part where you get to have some fun with your schedule, right? We think that schedule is whatever I want it to be, and people fight for it all the time. Stop it. You need to come into a reality that this is not how life works. Life is not that I'm going to one day do whatever I want to do throughout the day. You're a slave and I'm a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Stop. That's the end point right there. You and I have to admit that. When you and I admit that, we'll understand that I don't get to do whatever I want to do. There are things I have to do. And then beyond that, okay, let's see what else I can do. So now that we've covered what we have to do, what else I can do, or what else you can do, is understand our options. Now you can talk about, okay, khalas, let's modify how the goals are structured. So let's say dealing with the Quran, right? Dealing with the Quran, I want to finish the entire Quran in the month of Ramadan. This is a very common and popular goal. Some people will finish it twice, 3 times, whatever it may be, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times in the entire month. The goal, regardless of how many times you want to finish the Quran, my request to everyone is that you maintain a consistent relationship with the Quran every single day. The things that I'm going to mention in terms of spirituality, I said I was going to come back to this. I said dua, I said dhikr, I said salah, I said siyam, and I said salah, siyam, dhikr, and Quran. I said Quran. All of these things need to be consistent. These need to be consistent every single day. Every single day. So it's not like I'm going to go all out and pray 5 times today, and tomorrow I'm going to pray a few of them. Can't do that. It has to be 5 times every single day. You should not, I can't say you can't, but you should not do it where you say, okay, I'm going to sit down these 3 days, I'm going to knock down the Quran, finish the entire khatam in 3 days, and then I'm chilling for the rest of Ramadan. No, don't do that either, right? Keep it consistent. So whatever spiritual form of worship you want to carry out, make sure that if you're putting it into your schedule, it's something that you can do every single day. And the last type of spiritual action that you can do, also I want to mention this, is charity. Launch Good is very popular for this. They have this Ramadan challenge where they automate your givings every single day, and they kind of take money out of your credit card. I think it's a fantastic initiative. It helps for those who forget to donate. And if you just set it up, you can even donate $1 a day, right? Do that. Make sure that you donate consistently throughout every single day for this month of Ramadan. And that should be instilled in your schedule as something that you can have fun with. Now you can say, okay, how much do I want to donate? Okay. You're reading Quran every day. Now you can say, okay, what do I want to read in the Quran? Have some fun. I want to read Surah Taha today. I want to read Yasin today. Like, enjoy what you're doing. Something I want to mention about these goals. If you dread the goals you set yourself for, you are on the wrong path. Some of us, we set these goals and we're like, oh gosh, I hate doing this every single day. I have to go through this every single day. That is not a goal that's set for you. And that is not a goal that's meant for you. It is not. If you are dreading what you are doing, then you don't want to achieve it, to be honest. So if you actually have goals that are actually laid out in your schedule and you actually appreciate them, then you'll push for it more. The reason why we sometimes fail to follow our schedules is because we don't like what we're doing. Frankly speaking, a lot of people hate going to work on Monday morning because they hate what they're doing. Because I don't want to do this every single day. And well, is that part of your overall schedule? Is it part of your overall objective in life? Ask yourself, is it? Maybe it is, maybe it is, I don't know. But you have to understand that. So when you're setting a schedule for Ramadan and you're like, okay, I gotta finish the entire khatam in 30 days. Okay, I'm a very slow reader. I struggle with reading Arabic. Okay, I'm struggling. It's been an hour. I'm getting tired. I can't keep up. Oh my God. Ugh. Day 3, I'm still on Juz 1. Oh my gosh. I can't do this. What did you do? You set the wrong goal for yourself. You set the wrong goal for yourself. Know yourself. Understand who you are. Understand your capacity. To talk about smart goals, understand your capacity. Know what you're actually capable of doing. It's okay if the entire world is finishing a khatam and you're not. Just stay consistent with the Quran. Just stay consistent with the Quran. Allah's not going to say, let me see your resume. Oh, okay, 5 khatams in one Ramadan. He's not going to do that. He's looking at your intentions, and we talked about this on day 1. There's a reason the series is structured in a certain way. I put some thought behind why one comes after another. So we have to understand that when we're setting a schedule, now that we have sincere intentions, we can set the right objectives and actually pursue them. We can pursue the objectives. If we want to become those people who wake up in the morning and we open our eyes and we make dua like the Prophet Muhammad, then we can become that. But if you and I dread making that dua, then we'll never make it. We'll never make it. So when you're making this schedule, whatever goals you have for Ramadan and you're trying to incorporate into your schedule, ask yourself, do I like doing this? How much do I like doing this? Yes, it's the month of the Quran. And a lot of people struggle with the Quran. A lot of people don't know how to read the Quran. This is very common, and it's okay if you don't know how to read it. Take this month. Don't take it to just say, okay, I'm going to read it half incorrect the way I'm reading it and I'm going to finish a khatam. No, I would rather advise you to learn how to read it correctly through the entire month. If you are someone who doesn't know how to read the Quran correctly, my recommendation to you would be to actually spend the entire month taking just one juz, one para, whatever you want to call it, one section of the 30 sections, and learn how to read that, how to recite that correctly for the 30 days. So that at least you know how to read that correctly instead of you reading the entire Quran in 30 days incorrectly. This is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to be careful with it. Right? So we have to make goals that actually make sense for us to attain, and they have to be something we enjoy doing. Because once you actually understand how to read and you recite the juz correctly, you're going to be so happy because you're going to say, I know at least I've accomplished this. But if you're doing things haphazardly, you'll be wishy-washy about it. You'll say, okay, maybe, all right, I guess I finished it at least, right? Pat on the back. You're not going to appreciate what you're doing. So again, your goals should not give you anxiety. Your goals and your schedule should not make you feel should not make you dread it, right? If it's making you feel that way, really revisit your schedule. That's actually a point I have here. If you're failing to follow your schedule, or you despise your schedule, which can happen, you need to revisit your schedule. This is something I feel like people don't talk about when they talk about planning a schedule. Just because you really took the time out for 2 days and you really lined everything up, and you're like, this is awesome, this is exactly what I can do, it doesn't mean you got it right the first time around or the second time around. You may have to revisit your schedule multiple times to really understand what works for you. And a way to do that is by laying down the foundations, understanding what are my mandatory things and what are my optional things. So when you revisit your schedule, you can never change what's mandatory. You can only change what's optional. So you cannot change salah, you cannot change family time, you cannot change rest and eating. Now, what you eat, you can change. How much sleep you actually need to function, you can understand that on your own. What you're doing with your family during family time, you can decide that. And how long you make your salah, and the recommendation is to make it longer, you decide that. And based on these variances, you'll understand how to really have a productive schedule that you actually appreciate. You cannot try to you cannot try to be successful in following your endeavors in the schedule you're setting if you can't appreciate what you're doing. You have to appreciate your objective. So if you cannot appreciate the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran that you and I are supposed to gain taqwa this Ramadan, then stop thinking so much about your schedule. First appreciate the goal. First ask yourself, man, am I really conscious of Allah? Am I really thinking of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do I really think about that when it comes to my daily dealings and dealing with people and me reading and doing my ibadat? Am I really thinking about Allah? If I'm not, then I need to start thinking about Allah. If you can't set your intentions straight, don't try to set a schedule. That's as simply as I can say it. Now, I want to mention one more thing in setting schedules, in the optional things, right? In the optional things, what you should do is make it something that are quickly attainable, right? This goes back to the whole making smart goals. You have to feel accomplished. As human beings, we're very weak. We're very weak. So as soon as something gets a little bit tough, we want to give up very quickly. So if you need to set some goals throughout your day that you find easy to attain. So, for example, I'll give an example from my life. Yesterday after Taraweeh, I wanted to do something with my friends, right, over online, whatever. But I said I can't because I gotta watch this lecture real quick. Because I told myself I was gonna watch a specific lecture at 11:45 every single night, right? It's like 15 minutes long or 30 minutes long, whatever it is. So I wanted to engage with my friends and talk to them and spend time with them virtually, but I couldn't. Because I was like, wait, my schedule. Let me just finish this real quick. Let me just finish this video real quick, right? So at that point, I'm kind of dreading it. But then when I started watching this video, I started appreciating it, right? So make sure there are things you can actually appreciate when you're doing it. And after that's over, you're thinking, okay, you know what? I can actually do whatever I want to do, right? If you change your schedule, that's fine. If you shift things around because your day's switching around, that's okay. But you need to hit what's mandatory. You cannot go throughout the day and miss what's mandatory. Then you're failing. You're failing. Even if you made $1 million, you're failing. Even if you become the doctor you want to become, you're failing because you missed what's mandatory. And what's mandatory is salah. What's mandatory is the connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What's mandatory is to gain taqwa. The last thing I want to talk about is the types of worship that I mentioned. I talked about the Quran, but I didn't talk about dua much. I need to talk about dua because I feel like we are underestimating dua. Even though we always talk about make dua for me, brother, make dua for me, sister, do this for me, I'm making dua for you, inshallah, 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 and you're like saying things half duas here, half duas there. Take some time out to actually incorporate dua in your schedule in two ways. The first way being that you make dua for the things that you actually need in this life, right? When I say in this life, you need forgiveness in this life. Right? So ask for forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask for barakah in your family, in your sustenance. Ask for all these things, and it's good to ask for these things, right? Ask for the help of the ummah across the world, those who are suffering, who are oppressed. Make dua for them as well. Consider all these things in your dua. That's the first one. The second way you take the dua is by making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows you and He helps you maintain your schedule. Stop trying to follow a schedule if you're not making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you through it, right? You need Allah's help. I need Allah's help. No matter how ambitious we might be, no matter how successful we might think we are, or how amazing we think we are, how smart we think we are, or how independent we think we are, subhanAllah, we're absolutely nothing. We're absolutely nothing. We're nothing. We're nothing. So without Allah's help, we cannot achieve anything. So how can you and I be so tedious in creating such a set schedule and be so focused on attaining it without for once thinking that if Allah does not allow me, I cannot attain it? You and I have to think that way. This is a spiritual connection to having a practical schedule. See, when the people of the dunya talk about a schedule and they talk about practicality, they talk about what you can do, what you can accomplish, all on your own, and this is all you're doing. But when people of the akhirah, when people of Islam, when the believers talk about practicality, they talk about tawakkul, and they talk about relying upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout your affairs. So if your affair is to have a certain schedule you're following, you have to maintain it and make sure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is definitely a part of it. Because without Him, you have nothing. You can have the best schedule written out, and you can have all the free time in the world, and you'll still fail. We have to have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help in all our endeavors. So dua is in two ways. I mentioned one, that you actually make dua for the people, for the ummah, for yourself, for the akhirah, for forgiveness, and all of those things. But you also make dua for your consistency in what you're doing in your schedule, so that you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help pushing you, supporting you throughout this entire time. Another thing I want to talk about in terms of practicality, you need to be checked. Everyone needs to be checked. What do I mean by checked? We need to be put on the spot by somebody. See, the thing is, when we make these schedules, they're all to ourselves, right? So it's like, okay, here's my schedule for me, and this is what I need to do. And I failed, oh man, I'm so demotivated. You need to have someone put you in check, all of us. So if you have a schedule that you're comfortable sharing with somebody, and I would assume it's someone from your family or maybe it's your best friend, share with them. And then they can keep a check on you. The best thing, the best type of schedule to be checked with, and the best type of way to be checked with is by your teacher. So if you have a teacher, a spiritual teacher, right? If you have a teacher who's teaching you Islamic knowledge or teaching you Quran or teaching you some form of spirituality in this religion, then you go to him or her and you say, I'm messing up on my schedule, or this is what I'm doing. You have a report out. You're reporting, just like you report in your job at your workplace to your manager, right? Because what happens if you don't report to your manager? You start becoming lazy. You start letting things go, maybe, right? Same thing. You need to be in check. We all need to be in check when we have a schedule. I don't know who that person is in your life. If you have no one in your life, then you have to do your best. And not everyone is easy. It's not easy for everyone to do this, but do your best to at least confide in someone. Maybe you can find a teacher. It's easy to find an Islamic teacher, right? Join the local masjid programs that's happening and the Islamic educational programs that are happening, and find a teacher from there and say, hey, I want your support. Can you help me guide? Can you guide me throughout this process, right? And inshallah, someone makes time to help you do so. But you need to be put on check. I need to be put on check. All of us, to really say, am I really following through with what I've set out for? If not, then I need to be reprimanded, or I need to be told that, hey, you're messing up and you're not going to reach your goal. I need to be reminded. And this cannot be from someone who we look down upon. Now, we should not look down upon anybody, but there are some people we take with more reverence, right? We need to go to those people and ask them, hey, can you please put me on check, right? This is something I want to make. This is probably the last thing I wanted to mention, because when it comes to this entire overall approach towards having a schedule, we need to understand every aspect to it. So that starts from the purpose, the objective in the life itself, in our life, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The purpose of Ramadan itself, which is to gain taqwa. Now that we have purpose and we understand it in terms of life and Ramadan, and we have set our intentions, now we can look at the best of examples. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now that we understand the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his amazing, awesome schedule that he used to follow, we can kind of take the mandatory things that we need to keep into our schedule, and we kind of copy and paste that. Now that we have the mandatory things in our schedule, we have some blocks that are free and open, we can modify that. And even in the mandatory things, we can refine it a little bit more. Now that we have this based on our schedule, whether I'm working a night shift or a morning shift, or I'm not working at all, or I'm a student, I have some control over what I want to do. And a big part of that is understanding that I don't have control over a lot of things I want to do, because I'm a slave. I told you about this, guys. I told you about this before. I'm a slave. You're a slave. We have to accept that. The heart will be restless if it does not understand it's a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it will always keep asking for this and that. But the slave understands, hold on. As much as I want to do this, I cannot, because I already have an obligation that I need to fulfill with my Rabb, with my Lord, because I am the slave of my Lord. So this is very important to understand. There's really a mental approach that goes towards carrying out a practical schedule that has action items behind it. So now that we understand this, now we understand, okay, that doesn't mean our schedule is the best schedule. We might have to revisit it. We might fail, right? We have to be checked by someone else to see if we're actually following through with what we set out for. And also we have to make dua throughout this entire process to understand, hey, do I have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's support? Can I actually make dua for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to support me on this? Like, does this make sense for me in terms of my objective in Ramadan? That whatever I'm doing, keep in mind that these goals are attainable. They're not ridiculous for you, right? Again, if you're that person who doesn't know how to read Quran correctly right now, that's okay. But don't set bold goals for yourself, right? And if you can't read correctly, don't just set bold goals to say, I'm going to become a hafiz by the end of the month. Like, I'm going to memorize the entire Quran by the end of the month. You have nothing memorized. I'm going to memorize everything by the end of the month because I know how to read. No, attainable goals, right? Once you have that understood, you maintain consistency throughout all of these things, and then you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for dua. You ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help, and if after all of these things you still fail, you revisit. You just try to do your best, and throughout this revisiting process, something interesting will happen. You'll understand that you are not capable of what you thought you could be doing.
You're not capable of what you thought you could be doing, and that's perfectly okay. It's a humbling process, right? When you're trying to create a schedule that you're trying to follow, very humbling, because you realize, man, I'm really weak at some things. That's okay. Identify those weak things, identify what you're strong at, and just focus on what you're strong at, and keep those weak things here and there so you can improve on them over time, right? Don't feel incumbent to say that I have to become like a freaking superhero in Islam in the month of Ramadan. Like I'm going to stand out and I'm going to be the best Ramadan Muslim there is in the world. No, do what you can do within your limits. And if you're struggling, it's okay. Identify your weaknesses and say, that's fine. I'll do whatever I can to push on, to persevere. And then anything beyond that, khalas, Allah, I hope, and I pray Allah accept. Subhanallah. If Allah does not accept your effort and my effort, we can have the best of schedules. We can be doing everything we want to be doing. You and I can be finishing 3 khatams, we can finish the Quran 3 times in the month of Ramadan. We can be praying 20 rak'ahs of Taraweeh every single day. We can be fasting perfectly all throughout. We can have no arguments, nothing, no cursing, no backbiting, no lying, no cheating, none of that. Ramadan can be blissful and amazing, apparently. But if Allah does not accept it, it's futile. If Allah does not accept it, it's futile. And this is how we humble ourselves. For those of us who actually have schedules, again, I talk to different crowds, so I have to compensate for different types of people listening to this lecture, right? There are people who are listening to this lecture and they're thinking, but I actually follow my schedule very well. Good. That's fantastic. MashaAllah, Allah bless you with more strength and rigor to continue doing so. But remember, don't let the schedule make you arrogant. That you feel in a way that you are someone who is so amazing that you're following your schedule like no one else can. The reason you have so much success is because of all you're doing and what you've done so far on your own and your amazing schedule that you've put time into, and you've gotten yourself to where you are today. Be very careful of that. See, at the brink of success, shaitan hits you with the hardest of tests, which is arrogance. So for those of us, and this is a very slight note, for those of us who are actually performing our daily worship and getting the rest we need, spending time with our family, Allah bless you, Allah allow you to continue doing this, right? But don't let it overcome you in terms of making you arrogant. Shaitan also was someone who was very outstanding in his worship at one point before he became shaitan and he was casted out of the paradise, right? We don't want to become that. So throughout this entire process, when you're following a schedule, remember to be humble, remember to be remind yourself that you're a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, regardless of what you do, that man, I really am just trying my best. If Allah has given something to me, then it's from His bounty, it's from His fadl that I've gotten it, and if He's not, then I'll do my best to get whatever I can. My risk is already written for me. Whatever I'm supposed to do is already destined for me. Let me just do my part. Let me make dua. Let me push through, inshallah. And this is the mindset we need to have throughout this entire process. Allah make it easy upon those who are actually trying very hard, right? Who are not able to create a schedule or follow their schedule. Do your best to actually push through and make dua, right? You can change it. You can become a better person. It doesn't have to be only on the first day of Ramadan. It can be on any single day. You can become someone that you never thought you could be, right? And it's happening to all of us, right? Think of who you were 5 years ago, right? And the schedule you used to follow. And think of your schedule now. You have things in your life you never thought about before that you would ever have. And just like that, 5 years from now, you'll have things in your life that you never think you will have. So make dua and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to actually help you throughout this time, that Allah, I want to become a better person. I want to become a better Muslim. I want to be more likable I want to be more likable to you, Allah. Ya Allah, I want to be more likable to my parents, to my mother, my father, Ya Allah. I want to be able to attain Jannah through my parents, Ya Allah. Allah, make me a good son, make me a good daughter, Allah. Make me a good husband, make me a good wife, make me a good father, make me a good mother. Make us all of these things, and beyond that, make us the best of slaves, Ya Allah. And you have to make dua for these things. And it's okay to struggle. Again, it's okay to struggle, but you have to push. You can become better. If you think, for those people who are actually doing outstanding right now on their schedule, if you think that you've reached your highest peak, I'm telling you, you're fooling yourself. You can even become better. So keep that in mind as you create your schedules for Ramadan and as you set your goals and your objectives. And inshallah, we'll conclude, inshallah. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilaik. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.